Hello from London. If you're coming to visit in the next year or so, there might be one major thing on your mind: how expensive London is. And listen, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a very expensive city. Apparently, the third most expensive city in the world to live in and the sixth most expensive to visit. So, you gotta prepare for this. But the good thing is there are quite a few ways where you can cut your costs, but also still have a great time while you're here. So we're gonna tell you about how to do that in this video. So let's go. Let's start with the kicker: accommodation. Now, there's not really that much you can do about the fact that your accommodation in London is going to be, relatively speaking, quite expensive. And prices for accommodation in London can really vary depending on many factors, but for a very, very general number, you can expect to be paying about £100 a night for a budget accommodation, $200 to $300 for mid-range, and $400 a night plus for luxury. That being said, I do have a couple of tips for you to help you keep that accommodation cost as low as possible. So you could choose to stay a little bit outside of central London because generally speaking, the hotels will be a little bit more on the affordable side compared to if you get something right smack dab in the middle of central London, the most popular part of the city. Now, we have amazing transport here, so actually even if you stay outside of central, you can usually get around the city pretty easily via the tube or a bus. But you do also want to take into account that you will have some extra travel time depending on what parts of the city that you're trying to go to from your hotel. So just a little Google mapping to see how much transport you'll end up doing. And you should also keep in mind that there will be a little bit of added cost to staying outside of the center for transport, but it's not usually too much. Now, I think the most cost-efficient way to stay in London is by booking into a hostel. Now, if you're not familiar with how a hostel works, you usually will book a bed in a room with other people versus booking an entire room. And if that sounds a little bit odd, well, here's the upside. You can pay dirt cheap prices per night if you do that. Also can be a really fun way to make friends. Hostels are also great if you're in a group of like 4 to 5 people because you can book all of the beds in a room of 4 to 6 beds, and then it just feels like you guys have your own private hotel room, which is quite fun and also way more affordable than actually getting a hotel room. And if you want to know about the hostels that we recommend when you come to London, we have a link to an article that tells you that in the description box of the video. Let's move on to what is probably my favorite topic: food and drink. Now, there's a lot of bad advice out there that tells you if you're eating and drinking in London on a budget that you should go to basically just fast food restaurants and go get cheap meal deals of crappy sandwiches at Tesco, which is a supermarket that's here. And no, we're not doing that. Just because you're on a budget doesn't mean that you have to eat badly. So I'm gonna tell you about some hacks to help you save while you're eating and drinking in London. If you want affordable options in what is usually very expensive central London, then come and eat in Chinatown. There's a whole range of what you can find here in Chinatown, but there's also lots of affordable options. For example, there's a lot of places that you can get street food, or you can stop into one of the famous bakeries in the area. You'll find lots of affordable eats in there, and you can actually try a whole bunch of different ones because everything is so cheap and so yummy. If you're on a budget when visiting London, eating out can really start to add up for you. Especially in the evening, you would probably expect to spend at least £15 per person, including service charge, but definitely not including drinks. But one of the best ways to save money on eating out when you're in London is to go to one of our many amazing food markets and have your meals there. During the day, we have tons that are open, including Borough Market. Just avoid on a weekend because it is actual madness in here. But we also have some covered markets that are open in the evening so you can have dinner at them. For example, we have Seven Dials Market, which is in Covent Garden, and Mercato Metropolitano, which is in Elephant and Castle. That place is massive. There's literally so many options for you to have, and you can expect to spend between like 9 and maybe 12 pounds per person on your meal. So it's a little bit more affordable. Also, a lot of the traditional British foods you can find for pretty affordable around the city still. For example, you can get pie and mash for as cheap as 5 pounds and it's like really filling. Fish and chips you can find for 10 to 11 pounds. And if you go for more snacky options like a Scotch egg, that's literally just a few pounds. And if you want to know about some of the great British traditional dishes and foods you should try when you're in London, we actually have 2 videos that tell you what to try and where to go to try them. So you can click the link in the description box to watch those. But after you finish this video, do not click off yet, please. Thank you. Okay, I have a question. Do you like paying less than full price for things? I mean, I know I do, especially when I travel. And if you're coming to London soon, there's something you should know about for your trip that will help you save money on everything you are going to be buying and booking, like hotels, tours and attractions, train tickets, and everything else. It's called Voyagr. Just sign up to the free Voyagr email list and we will send you free weekly alerts telling you about the best deals and discounts that are happening on things that you are going to be buying and booking for your trip anyway. So why not pay less for them? This is my baby, it's run by my team and me, and you have nothing to lose because it's completely free. So go to the link in the description box of this video to sign up for your free Voyagr alerts, or you can scan this QR code and that will open the page to sign up. Okay, let's get back to the video. Okay, let's talk about activities. Now, everybody has to get here and everybody has to sleep, so obviously you do have to spend money in those categories. But when it comes to activities, we actually can do a lot of fun things without having to completely break the bank. Now, obviously we have so many major famous attractions in the city, but they all come with pretty major price tags as well. But what you can do is you could just do your own walking tour to look at the outsides of these buildings, and then you don't have to shell out anything for tickets to go inside. And if you want a walking route that helps you to do that without having to spend your own time making it, we do that with our London itineraries. So make sure you have a look at those, linked in the description. If you come to London and you want a great viewpoint, totally get it. I love to do that when I travel too. Most tourists think that the place to do that is on the London Eye. And yeah, you get really good views from the London Eye, but if you're on a budget, the £25 ticket is probably not gonna be the one. But the good news is we actually have some really great free viewpoints that are just as good or better than the London Eye, in my opinion. For example, you can go to the top of the walkie-talkie building to the Sky Garden. It's quite literally a garden in the sky. It's actually taller than the London Eye, and you get amazing views over the city, plus it's completely free to visit. We are quite lucky here in London that basically all of the major museums here are completely free to visit, and they're also massive, in my opinion, a little bit too big. But you could technically spend an entire day exploring 1 or 2 of these free museums, which is great value. If you have a little bit of money to spend, I do think that a really efficient way to use it is to book a tour. Now, hear me out. Some of the major attractions, if you book a tour guide, you actually get a pretty good deal where you're paying just a little bit more than the ticket to go to the attraction, but included you get a super knowledgeable tour guide and you find out way more than if you had just walked around on your own. I also think food tours are really good value because you, first of all, will be so full after that you will skip at least one meal, so you saved your money in that sense. But it's also the most cost-effective way to be able to try small amounts of a bunch of different types of food instead of having to go to various different restaurants and various different food stalls and having to buy full portions of each of them, which will cost you way more. And of course, the cheapest type of tour you can book is a walking one, which we think is great use of money. Now, if you want some recommendations for tours that are absolutely fantastic in London, of course, we know some really good ones, so we'll leave some links down in the description box to articles that will give you lots of suggestions. We have a pretty good public transportation system here in London. So from the early morning until midnight, you can absolutely avoid ever having to pay for a taxi. Just hop on a bus or a tube or a train instead. And I'm gonna give you a couple of money saving tips for transport to help you stay within your budget. So first off, never ever buy a daily travel card. They are such a ripoff. I don't even know why they sell them, to be honest. But you can pay for public transport with 3 different options. You can do contactless debit or credit, Google Pay or Apple Pay, or you can buy an Oyster card and then you can refill your credit onto there and pay for the tube that way. The first 2 options are, in my opinion, are much easier than getting an Oyster card, but it's up to you. Also, if you have kids with you, kids under 11, they ride all public transportation for free. Just take them through the wide gates when you're going onto the tube and you'll have no problems. And if your kids are between 11 and 15, you could actually get them 50% off tube and bus travel. Just get a young visitor discount applied to an Oyster card, and you can do that at any station and just ask a staff member. It's really easy. Because most of London's airports are not actually in London, sometimes tourists will come unprepared and end up spending a lot of money for their airport transport to their hotel. Luckily, as with anything, there are ways around that and to keep things really cheap, but you just need to plan ahead and know what your options are. And luckily, we have lots of videos and articles that will help you to figure out what your options are depending on what airport that you are flying into and where you're trying to get. So we will leave links to some helpful stuff down in the description box. Why spend £100 on a taxi when you really don't need to? Good morning from London. Listen, London is even more expensive than usual these days, but in this video, I'm gonna show you some great things you can do while you're here that are £15 per person or under. And listen, I don't mind spending a little bit of money, but I also love a really cool thing to do that doesn't happen to break the bank. So I promise these are gonna be a good recommendation. So come on, let's go see the first one. We're starting the day in Chinatown, one of my favorite areas in central London, and this is a great place to come for affordable and delicious food. I recommend coming here and having yourself a little Chinatown dessert tour. Grab a couple of friends, pool your money together, and try a bunch of the different treats you can find around the area from all of the amazing bakeries and dessert shops we have here. And let me show you a couple of my favorites. Thank you so much. I just picked up one of Chinatown's most famous desserts, a bubble waffle thumb bubble wrap. This is a new take on a popular Hong Kong street treat called egg waffles. I went for the vegan special, which has ice cream, raspberries, and chocolate sauce on it, and it's wrapped in kind of like a pancake bubble wrap thing. This bubble wrap was £7.50, and it's definitely big enough to split with a friend or 2 on your dessert tour. Also right behind me is Chinatown Bakery, which is like the OG bakery in this area. We stopped in and I got 2 of their most popular vegetarian sweet treats. A fluffy pandan cake and the classic custard bun. Both of these were only £1.60 each. I love this place because it is really buzzy, it's really affordable, and it's kind of a fun experience to go in and collect all the sweet treats and things you want to get, plop them on a tray, and then pay the till. Let's dig into this custard bun. Really light and fluffy. There's an egg-based filling on the inside, which is quite sweet. So lovely, I love these. Well, this is the triangle pandan cake. Pandan is a plant that originates in Southeast Asia, so it's used a lot in flavoring for different treats. And this is so fluffy. Really light flavor, and there's a little bit of filling in the middle too. This is massive, so you'll definitely want to split it with whoever you're doing your dessert tour with. These 3 treats were just over £10, so still got some room in the £15 budget. Lots of other places you can go in Chinatown. Another personal favorite of mine, I've covered quite a lot on the channel, is Mamason's Dirty Ice Cream. It's an ice cream shop that serves this amazing Filipino treat called a bilog, which is basically a toasted ice cream sandwich. Get it with the purple ube ice cream. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. It's life-changing. One of my favorite things to do in London with my friends is to get tickets to a comedy club, and behind me is one of the best value comedy venues in all of London. This is the Top Secret Comedy Club in Covent Garden, and most nights you can get tickets here for £15 a person or less. This venue is quite well known for having really big acts come in and surprise the guests at even the most affordable shows, but the regular comedians are also really good. And if you want really cheap tickets, you can book for one of the work in progress shows, which are usually £1 or completely free. Here in London, we're really lucky that we're really lucky that the majority of our most famous museums are completely free to visit. But that also means that they get incredibly crowded and you might have to queue to get inside, which personally, that's basically my worst nightmare. Instead, if you opt to spend a little bit of money, you can explore one of our amazing underrated museums throughout the city. You'll not only get to learn and explore an interesting subject, person, or building, but you'll also avoid having to elbow your way through hordes of teenagers on school trips. One of my favorite underrated museums in London is Leighton House Museum in Holland Park. It was the home of painter Frederick Leighton, and it now houses a stunning art collection in the beautiful property that you get to explore. Tickets are only £11 for adults and £5 for children. If you want some more ideas for other cool museums to visit, then watch this video that talks about exactly that next. By the way, if it's your first time visiting London, I have a free London 101 guide, which has everything you need to know before you come to the city. So make sure you click the link in the description box to get that. Again, it's for free, so make sure you do that. And now let's go back to the video. So we did a dessert crawl earlier in the day, but how about we do a little self-guided pub crawl? Now, the price of a pint of beer has gone up significantly in London recently, but we have a solution.
The half pint. Half pints are half the price and half the fun. Just kidding. But they are a cheaper way to try different beers as you pub hop, plus it keeps you more sober. Unless you drink 2 in the time you drink a pint, then it doesn't really. So where can you do your own little half pint pub crawl? Well, we're having this half pint, which only costs £3.45 at the 10 Bells across from the Spitalfields Market. This would be a good starting point as there are many pubs within walking distance and you could hit 4 more pubs before reaching £15. I also recommend having a watch of my London pub guide. There are some great Notting Hill pubs in that you could hop around to very easily.
A lot of tourists, when they come to London, want to go on a Jack the Ripper walking tour. The problem is that a lot of these tours are run in a pretty unethical way. A lot of them are led by tour guides who aren't historians, so they tell a lot of facts that are actually not correct. Also, there's a lot of focus on the murderer and not on the victims and their stories. In fact, a lot of them will even be quite disrespectful to the victims. So if you still want to learn about this part of history, but in a bit more of an ethical way, there is a tour called The Silent Voices of Whitechapel. You'll have a knowledgeable tour guide that will tell you actual facts, not just hearsay. You'll also learn about the amazing stories behind the victims, and you'll get to know the history and the communities in the areas of Whitechapel and Spitalfields. This tour is run by our friends at female-founded Rebel Tours. We love them, and tickets are only £15 each. So it's a great way to spend an evening at an affordable price. Click the link in the description box of the video for more information.
Now we're at one of my favorite places for a quick and affordable meal, Club Mexicana. Here they do a super fun take on Mexican food, and guess what? It's Taco Tuesday, which means that for just £15, you can get all-you-can-eat tacos for 1 full hour. And I'm an American, so you know I can shovel a lot in this gob in 60 minutes, so let's go do it. Oh, something I have not mentioned yet is that all of this goodness is totally plant-based. In fact, everything at Club Mexicana is.
Yes, stuff us. That's what I want to hear. Okay, here's the deal. The 1 hour starts as soon as you order your first tacos. We've gone for the first 2 on the menu, and there's 5 we're gonna try to get through in total, and each one comes in a trio. We've got the short rib and the al pastor to start off, and we're gonna dig in and try to eat it all within an hour with a beer. Okay, we're 40 minutes in, 20 minutes left. We are on the third and fourth type of taco. We are losing steam though. We're both feeling, John and I are feeling very full. I don't know if we're gonna get to the fifth. Our hour has just gone. We are full. We did not make it to all 5 tacos, but we ate a lot of good food. We're stuffed and we're happy. Can't go wrong with 15 pounds plus service charge, of course. Hello from London. Listen, London is generally a pretty safe city, but it is a big city. So there are some things that you do need to do while you're here to keep yourself and your belongings safe. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about some common scams you might come across when you visit London and how you can avoid them. So let's get into it. So we have these rickshaws that will go all around central London and in the touristy areas, and they are basically unregulated. And while there are, of course, lots of, I'm sure, very honest drivers who will charge you the normal rate that you're supposed to be charged to take one of those, I've heard so many stories of tourists that agreed a price when they first got into it, and then when they got to the destination, another higher price was demanded of them. And I've heard enough stories that I definitely would say that it's best to avoid these. If you want a different way to get around central London that's not a rickshaw, you could rent a city bike, which is called a Santander bike. You could get one of the Lime electric bikes or the other companies that offer them here. Or of course, you could support a great small business and do a bike tour or a walking tour around the area. And we'll put lots of suggestions for companies that we think do great tours around central London in the description box of the video. Support small business, it's much better. The second scam I want to talk about is selling of fake tickets. Now listen, I know it's kind of annoying if you come to London and the show that you wanted to see was sold out, or you haven't managed to get tickets for a certain attraction yet, but if somebody comes up to you in like Leicester Square, where we are, or Piccadilly Circus, offering to sell you tickets, and especially if they are at a big discount, avoid, avoid, avoid. A lot of times these places or these people are scamming you, and you're gonna actually end up losing a lot of money and have pieces of paper that don't get you into anywhere. I'd also say to avoid the little shops near Covent Garden and Leicester Square that are selling half-price tickets. They're not a scam. They are selling actual tickets usually, but they often come at a pretty big markup, so you're better off just avoiding. Also, beware of anyone trying to sell tickets for anything that is free. For example, watching Changing the Guard at Buckingham Palace, anyone can go, you don't need a ticket, you don't need to pay for one, definitely. That is completely free, you do not. That is completely free, you do not. Don't give anyone any money for that, you literally just rock up and watch. There are some things you can do to protect yourself. First of all, as a rule, do not buy any tickets from anybody off the street, ever. Second of all, always buy your tickets either from the venue's actual website or a reputable seller like TodayTix and the TKTS booth and official London Theatre website are all great for buying your theater tickets. And to avoid any disappointment, make sure you book things like theater and attractions in advance. Then there's the street game scam, sometimes called 3-card Monty, sometimes the cup and ball game. There's basically a bunch of different variations of these street games that people play on the major bridges, like here at Westminster Bridge, or around the major tourist attractions. Basically, the way it works is there'll be a guy on the side of the bridge with 3 cups in front of him, and he'll put 1 ball under one of the cups. Then he'll bet a passerby like 20 pounds that the person can't find the ball after he zhuzhes up the cups. And it's basically unwinnable because with sleight of hand, the person gets rid of the ball, and so the ball's under none of the cups. So no matter which cup you choose, you're not gonna win. And it's the same with the card game as well. These games are also run by groups of people. There's usually one person watching for law enforcement, one person who is an actual winner but is a fake plant, so it makes it look like it is actually winnable. And overall, you just want to avoid all of this. Also, even if you're just watching, the area right around these places are usually prime spots for pickpockets, so make sure you are keeping an eye on your stuff. And actually just don't watch this stuff. I mean, really, you're gonna come to London and watch some balls and cups? Just a bit weird. So So this one is a bit more high tech, but it could be a problem for tourists who don't have access to their own data roaming when they're in London. Scammers can use something called a pineapple, not the fruit, sadly, but it's basically where they set up a fake Wi-Fi that people connect to, and then as soon as you connect to it, scammers can basically access everything on your phone. Your social media profiles, any credit card or bank information you put in, your contacts to try to do some phishing scams. What they do is they set up a Wi-Fi network that looks like it's supposed to be the secure one, like at the airport or in an area with lots of shops, so that you connect to it, but then actually it's not the secure one. It's the one that's gonna take all of your information. Luckily, there are a few ways that you can avoid this. First, you can get your own data roaming package, whether that's through your original phone provider, or you can get a UK SIM or download an eSIM. And we have some reputable companies that we recommend linked in the description box of this video. If you have to use Wi-Fi, make sure you use the legitimate one for the place that you're in. For example, cafes and shops usually will have a sign on the wall with the actual name of their own network and the password, so make sure you connect to the exact one, because the scammers usually make one that has like an underscore after it or that looks almost the same. You could also protect yourself by setting up a VPN on your phone and your devices, which is a virtual private network, and that basically protects all of your data and your devices from being scammed from these pineapples. Basically, your best bet is to have data set up on your phone so you can use that as much as possible without having to connect to potentially rogue Wi-Fis. This next one will show you that you definitely should not be leaving anything valuable on a table when you're in London, or really like any major city. This happens everywhere. Basically, there's a thing where if you leave, let's say, your phone on the table, that someone comes over and they've got some clipboard or a piece of paper, and they're usually asking for something that's like quite nice. Like, oh, would you mind signing this petition that supports our local boys football team for young people or something like that? And you're like, obviously I would sign that, that's so easy. Then they take the clipboard or the piece of paper and they put it down on top of your phone or your valuable without you noticing. You sign, and then they take it away and say, thank you so much, oh my God, you're so nice. And they take your phone with it before you even notice, because you're really busy thinking about how good of a person you are, which makes sense. So, moral of the story is, don't ever leave any valuables on the table. I have actually seen this happen in person a lot, both inside places like pubs and bars, but also when sat outside. So, rule of thumb, keep it in a pocket or in your bag. Good morning from London. It happens to all of us when we travel to a new place that we end up overpaying for a bunch of different things. And that happens for a variety of reasons. But in this video, I'm gonna tell you about 5 things I always see tourists overpaying for and how you can avoid doing that. So let's go. Getting from the airport to the center of London. There are 3 ways that I see tourists overpaying for this, so let me walk you through them. Let's start with taxis. Almost all of London's airports are not actually in London, so a lot of tourists will walk off the plane and be shocked when they find out that a taxi to their hotel is going to cost them £100 or more. If that's not in your budget, every airport has at least a couple of public transport options that will get you into central London for a lot cheaper. With just a quick search on Citymapper from the airport you're flying into to your hotel, you can see all of your available routes and also how much each of them will cost you. Just be sure to adjust your arrival time in the app, because the availability of public transport drastically reduces very early in the morning or late at night. Now let's talk about the Heathrow Express. If you fly into London Heathrow Airport, you're gonna see loads of signs telling you to take the Heathrow Express into central London. You can do that, but the Heathrow Express is the most expensive train per minute in the world at £25 per ticket for a 15-minute ride. But if you're booking your ticket 90 days in advance or more, you can avoid paying £25 and instead opt for an advanced purchase ticket, which is just £5.50, which makes it cheaper than taking the tube, which actually takes way longer. If you aren't booking your tickets 90 days in advance or more, you can still avoid that 25-pound ticket price by avoiding the Heathrow Express and opting instead for the Elizabeth line. This goes into Paddington as well, takes only 28 minutes and only costs £12.80. So it's much cheaper, just a bit slower. The Elizabeth line also goes well into central London and even to East London, so Google Maps might actually tell you that taking the Elizabeth line to your hotel is a much better option anyway. Now, if you're not flying into Heathrow, chances are you're flying into Gatwick Airport instead, and we've got another tricky one there as well. There is the Gatwick Express, and that is a hard no. In basically all instances, if you take the Gatwick Express, you will be overpaying for your transport into central London from the airport. Why? Well, one way, the Gatwick Express ticket, when you buy it at the station, is £20, and the train takes 30 minutes to get to London Victoria Station. But there's also a southern train that goes from the exact same place to the exact same place that is only £12.50 and has 2 extra stops in between, making it only 3 minutes longer than the Gatwick Express. So if you take the Gatwick Express, you're paying a lot more money for saving 3 minutes of time. So it's basically just never worth it.
My first time here.
Ah!
All your videos, all your things before coming here.
Oh, cool. Overpaying for public transport. Okay, so now you're in central London and you want to get around the city. The number one way that tourists overpay for the tube and the bus while you're here is by getting a daily travel card. Now, you hear daily travel card and you think, oh, unlimited rides, that surely is going to save me money. But it actually doesn't, and actually ends up costing you more than if you had just used an Oyster card or contactless payment methods. Let me explain. The daily travel card costs £14.40 for travel through zones 1 through 4. Now, most tourists end up staying in zones 1 to 2, which if you pay for public transportation in those zones, the daily cap, or the most that you'll ever pay for the entire day in zones 1 to 2, is just £7.70. So if you stay in those 2 zones and you get a daily travel card, you're basically paying double the price for the same type of travel. Even if you do travel through zones 1 through 4, the daily cap for those zones is £11. So you're still paying more if you get a daily travel card. If you're super confused, don't worry. All you have to know is don't get a daily travel card. You'll end up paying a lot more, and instead pay for your transportation with contactless payment method or an Oyster card, and you're good to go. Okay, enough about public transport. Let's talk about attractions. I get mixed reviews from my community who go and do the must-dos in London, like the London Eye or the Tower of London. The tickets for major attractions like this are like £30 plus, so some people feel as if they have overpaid for going to these things. So how do you know if you're gonna feel like that? Well, it seems simple, but ask yourself, why am I gonna go to the Tower of London if I'm not really that interested in history? Or if you don't really like musicals, don't feel like you have to go see a show on the West End. It's important for you to think about what you like to do and what you're interested in, and not what someone tells you is a must-do when you're in London. We have so many things that you can do here that no matter what your interest, you'll always find something that will be of interest to you, and that you'll feel that you got good value paying for, and that you didn't overpay for it. Okay, now let's say you are here to do all the big must-dos and the big tourist attractions. That's totally fine. Let me give you a couple tips to help you save a little bit of money and help you feel like you haven't overpaid for your attractions tickets. First tip, most tickets are 10% cheaper if you order them online versus getting them at the door, so make sure you do that ahead of time. Number 2 is to check out the London Pass and the London Explorer Pass. These are 2 different city passes that give you discounts for going to a bunch of the attractions around the city. And I have articles for both of them that will help you figure out if either of them are going to be a good fit for your trip, so I'll leave links to those in the description box. Overpaying for bad food near the tourist attractions. Make sure that you plan out your meals when you're going to be sightseeing, and don't just leave it to, we'll find something when we're there. That is the perfect recipe for ending up at any old restaurant that's probably a tourist trap where you're gonna pay a load of money for some really bad food. By doing your research and planning your meals out, you can ensure that you're not trying to find any old place while on an empty stomach. You can make reservations at the good places, so you can make sure you can actually get a table at the time that you want. And you can just do your research and make sure that you're finding places that you are gonna feel like you got really good value for your money. It could mean the difference between paying 30 pounds for a terrible burger at Planet Hollywood or paying half the price at a market just around the corner that has delicious street food that you knew about because you did your research. Overpaying for your accommodation just because you think you'll be safer. I once had a follower tell me that a friend of his told him that the only way to ensure that your accommodation in London is safe enough is to make sure you're paying at least £600 a night for it. That is absurd and also completely wrong. I do hear of a lot of tourists who end up spending a lot of money on mediocre, international, overpriced hotel chains here in London because they think they'll be more comfortable and more safe there. But the truth is that here in London, we have even budget hotels and hostels that are incredibly safe. So you don't need to overextend yourself to be able to feel comfortable and safe where you're staying. That's tip number one. Tip number two is we have lots of accommodation recommendations on loveinlondon.com, but if you're looking at a particular property here in London, the best way to get a feel of if it's going to be safe is simply to read through the reviews. So make sure you check those booking.com or TripAdvisor reviews before you book anything. Tip number three, don't be afraid to book accommodation a bit outside of central London where all the main tourist attractions are. Generally, you're gonna get a bit more for your money if you do that, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna be anywhere that isn't safe. If you stay outside of central London, you can get to better know some of the more local areas that we have in the city that are also perfectly safe, and you get to know the tube and the bus system really well, which I think is a great part of staying in London.
Hello from London. My name is Chelsea and I've lived here for over a decade and I've basically explored every corner of the city. So I'm going to let you in on my best 3 things to do here. First up, another way to see Tower Bridge. You might recognise this landmark. It's Tower Bridge, not London Bridge by the way, and we love it. You'll know it because it's famous for splitting in two to allow big merchant ships to pass further down the Thames. Although nowadays, it's mainly tall tourist boats that pass through. Did you know that the Tower Bridge posts its bridge lift schedule on its website? You can check it out online and see if you can time a bridge lift for when your trip is. The website will even tell you which boat is passing under the bridge and in what direction. In my opinion, the best place to watch it is here on the southwest bank, next to this building, which is London's old City Hall, although it does get crowded in the summer. If you're looking for a less busy spot, the northeastern bank is great, just outside the Tower Hotel. It'll be a great view, but with less people. Take yourself on a walking tour around the city. We don't really recommend those free walking tours, but this is a really cool hack and a unique way to see those parts of the city you'd otherwise miss. A couple we recommend. The Flash Invader app. It's a great little app where you scan and collect street art on your phone. It doesn't give you a tour of where to find them, but if you Google it, there's a couple of routes from helpful players to sort you out. Next up, the Blue Plaques Tour. You might have seen or heard of these. They're signs on the walls of buildings managed by English Heritage, and they tell you of famous or important people that have lived or worked here. It's the oldest scheme of its kind. It started in 1866, and there's over 1,000. You can also take yourself on an art tour of London to places like this, Leek Street Arches in Waterloo, where you can watch the graffiti artists at work. Shoreditch is also a great place for this. Whilst we get our steps in, we couldn't talk about London and not talk about all our green parks and spaces. London has around 3,000 parks, including 8 royal parks and canal-side walks. These parks are a gorgeous reminder of London's history, as green spaces were a priority for leaders throughout the city's history. We also love Hampstead Heath, which is in North London, but my personal favourite has to be Richmond Park. It's southwest London and it's the perfect place for a picnic with your pals, especially in the summer because you can make a day of it. You're also not that far from long stretches of the Thames and Kew Gardens. If you want something more central, a lot of our parks are located right in the middle of the city. You could do 3 or 4 of them in a day. And while we're talking about walks, I can't not talk about the canal-side walks. You can literally walk from Paddington in the west to Victoria Park in the east and see some of the most gorgeous spots in London. I'm talking Maida Vale, Camden, King's Cross and Hackney. It's truly impossible to talk about free things in London without talking about the amazing perk of this city: free entry to national galleries and museums. Basically, back in 2001, the British government scrapped entrance fees to flagship galleries and museums. This was to allow more access to the culture and the arts in the UK. And great news, if you're a visitor, you also get free access to galleries and museums. But bear in mind, not all galleries and museums are free. You still have to pay for the London Transport Museum, for example. But generally speaking, if it's a big museum or gallery, you can get in for free. You could literally spend your entire trip doing museums and galleries alone, so it's best to pick the ones that stand out to you. It's also a great accessible activity to do here in London, especially if it's raining. There's a whole street of galleries and museums in Kensington alone, and they're connected by a tunnel. Personally, I love the Tate. There's always so many fun pop-up exhibitions, and it's just a great building to wander around. So lucky to have so many music schools and establishments in London, and some of them do free lunchtime concerts which the public can access. London Symphony Orchestra do a free concert at a church in Farringdon featuring Guildhall School orchestral artistry musicians. Even the Royal Opera House does one. These feature their performers and occasional guests, and there might even be some ballet. The free concerts usually last around 45 minutes, so it's the perfect addition to your itinerary. If you like history, we recommend visiting some of our historic houses whilst you're in town. These houses were generally owned by British aristocracy, and their stories give an interesting perspective on London throughout different points of history. There are some great houses, like Kenwood House, which is in Hampstead Heath, another one of our favourites for a free day out. It was originally built in the 17th century, but it was redesigned over and over again for whichever Earl lived there. The Wallace Collection is also a great place to visit. They also display art collected by Richard Wallace himself throughout his life. The art is displayed here in Richard Wallace's prime London residence, Hertford House. They also do a great afternoon tea. London is famous for being a green city, and we have a really cool selection of urban gardens with great views of London. You've probably heard us talk about the Sky Garden a lot. It's great, we love it. It's a garden located at the top of the walkie-talkie building with great views of the city, but it gets booked up and is super busy. They do have slots you can book on the day for free, but we'd recommend booking in advance if you want free access. Another option is the garden at 120. It is a garden with great views of the City of London. It has lovely plants and is the perfect spot for a break from a busy itinerary. Our final option doesn't have any views, but it's a Love and London favourite. It is the Barbican Conservatory. It's an unlikely but wonderful oasis in the Brutalist Barbican Centre, right in the centre of London. It has over 2,000 species of trees and plants, and you can definitely couple this with a trip to the Barbican Centre and check out the Curve Gallery while you're there. It's free as well. This is a great tip for people that want to see backstage at one of London's coolest theatres without the price tag that comes with it. You might know that the National Theatre does its own backstage tour, which costs around £15 a person. So although that's an option, if you don't want to pay, this is the hack for you. The National Theatre also opens up its Shirling backstage walkways 1 hour before curtain up on show days. There you can see props, the set design warehouse, the set design painting and more. It's a great way to see their busy production workshop and learn a bit more about how the plays are made. London has a bunch of free comedy that you can watch on any day of the week. It's the perfect evening activity after a day of sightseeing, although you'll want to check the times because the free shows won't be at peak times. Top Secret Comedy Club in Covent Garden do a ton of free comedy, improv sessions and a lot more for less than a £5. You can check the timings on their website. We also love Angel Comedy in Islington. This is a Londoner's favourite because they have free comedy and improv every night of the week. And it's located upstairs at the Camden Head pub. The free shows feature new performers, and sometimes well-known ones trying out new material, so you might get lucky and see a celeb comedian for free. They have 3 venues now, some of which do charge for shows, so make sure you check the website to see when the free ones are on. Fair warning, it is popular, and the room isn't that big, so turn up early so you don't miss out. One final evening activity, we love the Photographer's Gallery. It displays a ton of cool photography from up-and-coming artists to those that are established. Usually this gallery does charge admission to their exhibitions, but once you pay this, it gets you into every exhibition they have running. However, if you go on a Friday after 5 p.m, you can get in absolutely free. You can grab a drink from the bar. You do have to pay for that though, and go and have a look around their bookshops. and their print shops and the exhibitions as you please. Did we mention your favourite free London activity? Then let us know in the comments below what you love to do. And if you want more information, we have literally hundreds of videos, which you can watch by clicking one of the boxes around me.